of Buddhaya. Welcome to Buddha Dhamma TV. I'm Karen Tan. We are starting today's program with the recitation of words in the Pali language to honor the Enlightened One. These words pay tribute to the 9 noble qualities of the Supreme Buddha. To perform the first part of this recitation with grace and beauty, we have the beloved Sri Lankan songstress, Visharada Sirima Ratnayaka.
Navagunagatha. Arahang arahoti namena Arahang papang nataraye Arahat palang patto Arahang nameti namo Samma sambuddha ඥānena Samma sambuddha desana Samma sambuddha lokasmin Samma sambuddhati namo Vijñā charana sampanno Tassa vijñā pakasita Atita nagatuppanno Vijñā charanati namo Sugato sugatattanam Sugato sundaram pita Nibbanam sugatin yanti Sugato namati namo
Our next segment features Venerable Dr. Chandana as he explained convincingly Patama Rahogata Sutta from the scar text of the Samyutta Nikaya. In this discourse, Venerable Anuruddha, an enlightened monk at the time of the Buddha, explored 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, both internally and externally, focusing on origin and cessation, and cultivating mastery over perceptions. This is the beginning of a captivating series on this sutta by Venerable Dr. Chandana.
Whatever you have faced, whatever you have, or the challenges you have found yourself facing, you won't let that stay in this place, at this time, in your past. You will constantly be open to challenging yourself. And that happens in every single millisecond. It's amazing. It's amazing. As I was coming down the stairs, every single step is a gateway for arahantship, is a gateway for nibbana, is a gateway to understanding yourself. Push the envelope. Do not be afraid. Some of you, if not all of you, have faced fears, discomfort. And as a teacher, I am supposed to push those buttons compassionately, with tons and tons of metta, hoping that something can get through to you. So you can learn something that you haven't learned about yourself yet. That's why they're called intensives. That's why they're called retreats. What are you retreating from? Have you ever thought about that? I am retreating. I am going on a retreat. What is that? I am going on a retreat? No, you're retreating. Retreating. In other words, you're secluding yourself. From what? From all the jargon you tell yourself, all the lies you're expert at telling yourself. Now the problem is, many of us take those folders with us, those invisible folders with us. And we have a series of responses. When we hear something from the Dhamma, yeah, but what about this? These things have worked for me, so they must be valid. Okay, so this is a keeper. This is a keeper, this is a keeper, this is a keeper, this is a keeper. And then you end up totally unchanged. Maybe a little bit, because hey, you haven't had dinner, you haven't moved a lot, you had to wake up earlier, you had to sleep later. Probably some of you haven't slept for a couple of nights. And that would be it. That would be it. Not much has changed. Not much has changed. Why? The retreat, any kind of retreat, whether it's a 3-month retreat, 8-year retreat, 10 years retreat, 10-month retreat, whatever, they fail miserably if they do not help us to learn how to face the fears we have, safely tucked in. Going on a retreat means you are taking up a challenge that normally you would not. You would not. You don't need to, because you're busy. You have other things to do. Other things to be engaged in, be occupied by. In the old days, there are some people, very rare, but they still do this, monks, but they're rare. But in the old days, the Lord Buddha would send the bhikkhus out into the forest, the jungle. There would be huge snakes, cobras. There would be tigers, Bengal tigers. There would be all kinds of spiders, biting ants. And there would be wild elephants that do not care who you are. They will see you as a threat in their own territory, and they are very territorial. They will take you down. Plus your own fears. In the dark, there's no lights. I'm just listing the big ones. There's far more fear-causing agents. So that would be a retreat. We don't have that today in modern cities like this, in the world. So what do? We try to create or recreate the conditions that would allow us to get a snippet of that, some sampling of that. to face the fears. But what many of us do, and will continue doing, is that we will somehow manage to sneak in with us onto the retreat our tactics, our ways to soften it, our ways to distance ourselves from it, and not gain the most that the retreat could have given us. So 10 days is not that long of a time to really go deep. But for some people, it might be enough to push the buttons. Some of you started crying. Some of you really felt like, oh, whoa, 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 this is too tender. I don't want to go there. Ooh, this is too much. But then you allow yourself. That's a fear that you're trying to understand and overcome. You see, fear is one of the worst enemies you could face. And like I was saying the other day, emotions, especially fear, being an emotion, is one of the big ones that the world is using on the public, globally. The biggest emotion that human beings have been feeling, the loudest emotion that we humans have been feeling for the last 3 years or so, is fear. Not happiness, not joy. Fear. That is the common denominator that no one's talking about, which is very interesting. They talk about depression and things like that, but fear is at the bottom of it. We call it stress. Again, it's fear. After you pass through stress, you will come down to the bottom floor, the basement, and that is fear. The foundation. So fear is one of the worst enemies you can have. But you have to understand, human beings have come up with different tactics, methods of dealing with fear. The first reaction or the first attitude that human beings have, or any organism has, is to run away from it. We run away from it because it is very uncomfortable and we find ourselves in danger. It doesn't matter if you're physically here, everything's fine, there's no Bengal tiger attacking you, no spider attacking you, but the fear is as intense. It could be a look, it could be a word, someone resisting you, someone saying something. It could be any of those. The sound, we rush away, we run away. So that's the first. The second one is when people acquiesce. Acquiesce means give in. Not to the fear itself, but whatever demands are being placed on them to make the fear go away. Sure, show me where to sign. I'll give away my life. Just show me what to do. I'll do it. I'll do it. And that's exactly what human beings have been doing for the past 2.5 years on the planet. That has become the norm. You can deny it, but you know that would be futile. That's what we human beings are doing across the board. But that's not just something new. We've been doing this for a long time as human beings, but not on the collective level, globally. It has become the norm. And the worst thing about that is such a person who acquiesces, allows, gives away, sure, take my rights, sure, take this, take whatever you want, my clothes, here it is, just leave me alone. And whoever doesn't do that, this person turns around and starts pointing fingers. All of a sudden they become somewhat quasi-courageous, suddenly, to persuade themselves that they're actually doing something. You should do it too, you should do it too. Like me, be a coward. They don't say that. Then there is a third category of people facing fear. Those are the ones who are just very reactionary. They start fighting it. Fighting it. Which doesn't lead, anywhere constructive. And then there's the fourth category. These are the ones who, without reacting, they look at the fear. They really look at the fear. They sit with it. They say, hold on, let me take this. Let me see what this is all about. Let me try to understand it. Then they look and they see, okay, this is what you really want me to do, huh? Okay. Now I am going to actually resist you. I will not allow you. You are not permitted to do that to me. To take away this, to do that, to take away the calmness or tranquility of my mind. And they will fight, tooth and nails. They will give up their lives. There's a huge difference between that person and all the other three. Now, the fourth one is very rare, especially on this planet now, because everybody's trying to mimic that person. Everybody's trying to look like that person, behave like that person, but they're not, because of the reasons I just pointed out. But this fourth one has courage and wisdom running through their veins. That is the path of someone who lives and breathes the Dhamma. Plain and simple. This path is about courage. I keep saying it for years. This path is for the courageous ones, not the ones who pretend to be courageous. When the push comes to shove, they're the first one to, as they say, drop their whatever they're wearing and just run. They're just like, yeah, sure, show me where to sign. Weaklings. This is not the path of weaklings. And a retreat really allows you, puts you in that very sensitive state of mind. Are you willing to face your fears? Your fears. No one else can do that. That's such a privileged position, you know that? Because from it you will gain understanding and wisdom. But the interesting thing is that there is a far worse fear, or not fear, but far worse enemy. And that is called mindlessness. Mindlessness. That is when we are lacking, yes, sati, full awareness of your thoughts, your words, your actions, both internally and externally. How it's affecting you and how it is affecting the other people around you, the world around you. That is when you start to begin to understand the level of compassion that is necessary, that you're not living alone. We are surrounded by narcissists in this world. It's not anymore a situation where you have a personality disorder. In the DSM that we have in America, American Psychological Association, it's a very thick book. Diagnostical and Statistical Manual. Version 5. Actually, they're coming up with the 6th one, I think, if they haven't already. It's thicker. Very thin pages. It used to be this thick with very thick pages. It's now so many diagnoses. The reason why I'm saying this is because narcissism is what humanity is being plagued by. But it's become so subversive, it's pervasive, it's everywhere. And people have come up with ways to tweak it to make it look like it's not there in them. So they sugarcoat it a lot with actions, with words and things, appearances. That's one of the reasons why Lord Buddha says in the Vimlansaka Sutta, he wasn't talking about students, he was talking about teachers there. He wasn't just talking about people, he was talking about teachers. For you to go ahead and live with them before you make a conclusion about them. That yes, this teacher is really an arahant. This teacher is really solid. They understand the Dhamma, they live by the Dhamma. But it's not just for the teachers. Vimansaka Sutta is for everyone. Every one of us. So when you are on retreat, you get to see yourself in a different light, as well as you see others. The jig is up. Whatever you've been hiding, you're really going to have to struggle to hide it, because somebody's going to see something. And good luck hiding that. That's why it's like exposure. Going on retreat, you're exposing both yourself and to the world around you. That's another cause of fear for the person. So you see the multi-nuances of this experience that you've had. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and have a meeting with my mind. Go through all the nooks and crannies and crevasses of my mind. All the corridors and hallways of my mind. It's not just that. There's so much more that's going on, as you can see from what I'm trying to describe to you. The context around it. Thinking about something doesn't make it your reality, folks. Thinking about something does not make it your reality. You could keep saying it to yourself, but it's not going to make it real. If there isn't an investment, deep level of investment from you, emotionally, cognitively, physically. So I say that because over the 3 decades or so, I've seen a lot. I have seen it in myself. You don't have to go too far to see this. So reading on the Dhamma, listening to the Dhamma, but without applying it in your life, doesn't and will not bring it to life in you. Forget it. So all the knowledge that you keep adding is really not going to get you anywhere unless you apply it. Just a moment of sati, just a moment of really understanding. Leave the world outside. Don't bring in other people. Don't continue fighting with this person and that person. And she said that, and my teacher said this, so none of that. Take a little bit of the Dhamma and see if you can apply it in those hot moments when you're so easily agitated. The Dhamma has to prove itself to you at that moment. Its worth. It has to prove its worth to you at that time. But it can only do that if you are mindful of it fully, courageously. I hope I'm not talking in like, it sounds like I'm talking in like, mystical ways, because I'm trying not to. This is very much a fact. This is, there's nothing mystical about this. This is just real facts. So, whatever Dhamma you have been exposed to these, days, a week or so, whatever Dhamma you've been listening to, exposed to, means nothing if it doesn't ultimately change and transform you. It must, if it is really something significant for you. If it's real for you, it has to. You cannot keep it in a closet, in a cabinet. You cannot wear it like a badge. You cannot hang it on a wall like a diploma. You cannot show off. Say, I did the 10-day retreat at the BMV. Yes, thank you very much. Many people do that. Oh yes, I've done this many retreats. Who cares? Show me in your behavior what this retreat has done. I don't care. Show me how this has transformed you. Are you the same lousy person to yourself and everyone else? Or has this kind of changed something in you in a dramatic way? That's when we can say, It was a retreat, wasn't it? So no need to fool yourself. We're grown-ups. We need to be courageous and say it like it is. So you must be fearless, not a coward. There's a lot of that in the world today. Wearing the outfit of a courageous hero. Heroes don't need outfits. They are heroes. They are courageous. They don't need to show off. So you must be willing to fight. You must be willing to fight your ignorance. There's hand-to-hand combat going on. If you acquiesce, if you say, yes, 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 I will go back to my go-to, I will go back to the way that I've always done this whenever I've faced this issue, then you haven't learned anything. You're just copying out, you're just running away. As they say, with your tail between your legs, running away. No, you have to fight ignorance. There's an old saying that my grandmother used to say, it's you have to show the enemy your teeth. That means they need to be scared of you. Like a dog or a wolf. They show their teeth, their fangs. You need to show your enemies your fangs. And your enemy is none other than your own ignorance. Nobody else's. So don't worry about someone else's ignorance. You're always going to have somebody else ignorant. That's fine, that's a fact. But your job is not to help them or to remove their delusion. That is your delusion. Somebody else's ignorance, somebody else's kileshas will never take you to hell. Yours will. Nobody else's mistakes, nobody else's kileshas, defilements, asavas will take you to misery, to hell, to the hell realms. Yours will. So whose are you going to work on? But the world, especially in meditation circles, everybody's working so hard to improve someone else, to fix someone else. Oh, he's like this. She's like this. How come they don't do this? How come they're not that considerate? Oh, the millions and millions and millions of stories. He's wrong. She's wrong. Okay, who cares? Are you wrong? Well, we can't talk about that because I'm too busy concerning myself with other people's mistakes. And there goes another lifetime. Wasted. So I say this because tomorrow you will go back to your normal lives. So my encouragement is not to turn it normal, not to keep it normal, to shake some things up in your life. Don't be satisfied with the way you've been living your life. There's some screwed up things you've been doing in your life, and only you will have the capacity to fix it. Otherwise, you won't. Sati will help you. Sati is those flashlights I was talking about, the headlights in the car. If you don't turn it on, you don't turn it on. But then, later on, don't complain that you're in misery. At least to yourself. So I would like you to think about the second. I mentioned the second enemy, the worst, which is the mindlessness, lacking in mindfulness. Lord Buddha says, anybody who lacks in mindfulness will never attain arahantship. It doesn't matter however many retreats you do, Whatever, however many danas you do, how many monasteries you support, monks, nuns you support, food you provide, pilgrimages you do, I don't know, how many prostrations you do, means nothing. Nothing, as they say in America, nada. Zilch. Means nothing. Unless you have mindfulness. Yours. Sati. It's so simple. It's like, 4-letter word, sati. But how many times do we actually keep it? How many times do we actually bring it in? And it doesn't have to be so extravagant, so like bombastic. Yes, I'm practicing mindfulness. No, they monetize that too. Thanks to Kabat-Zinn and that capitalistic endeavor. Bastardized the whole thing. No, it's simple. It affects, it beautifies your life and the world around you because it involves sila. It gives you dignity back. It gives beauty back to this planet, to your family. You start seeing them with more loving eyes. They see you the same way. The sanctity of the family is brought back. The sanctity of the individual is brought back. Everywhere you look, you see beauty. Today, everything you touch, you see, you hear, you smell, you taste, is all polluted. We have to do investigative work when we buy something from the store. We have to really look. If you're conscientious, you need to look at the nutritional facts. In fact, 10 years ago, it was easier than now. You have to look and see. There's so many things that they have added, which is almost like a wild goose chase. It's so hard to understand. You need to do some research as to what is this multi-syllable word that I am consuming in this very simple thing that is not supposed to have this. It says mango juice, for example. What is this other things that are there, in there? I'm expecting mango and its juice. Maybe some water in there. Oh, they've added so many things, chemicals, and I'm not even talking about the air. The soil, which is so depleted. So everything we touch is toxic nowadays. Everything you see is corrupted, is polluted. You have to really exercise skillfulness in choosing what you're looking at. You cannot be nonchalant about it. You have to responsibly look at, okay, what am I looking at? Because they're invading your eyesight, your visual cortex, they're attacking it, constantly pushing some advertisement. Every time you lift up your phone, you think you're looking at the screen. Oh no, the cameras are looking at your pupils. This is not conspiracy. And they keep adding these different cameras you see behind the phone. Well, why do I need so many 3, 4, 5 different cameras in the back? What is that? What are they doing? Oh, each one of them has its own purpose. Thank you very much. Don't worry. They're watching everything. They're watching your body temperature. They're looking at what it is that you're mostly being captivated by, looking at the thing that they are projecting on the screen, and they know exactly what it is that you're looking at. You are being controlled. You're not in control, unless you have sati. So today, if humanity really wants to help itself, it's not climate change, it's sati. Climate change is the other new flavor of the month. Okay? A few years ago it was COVID. Now it's climate change. That's the new thing. Well, it's going to change. Believe me, it's going to be something else. I don't know what. Well, yeah, soil and this and that, but there's other things. Don't be surprised. That's what I'm trying to say. When you look at life, you need to look at patterns, and that was what Lord Buddha was excellent in doing. If you practice the Dhamma, you need to look at patterns and not be like that cat that you move something in front of it and it gets focused, tunneled vision. That's what humanity has become. And it's sad because I see Dhamma students becoming like that. Fixated with tunnel vision. They are not seeing the context. They're not looking at the patterns. There used to be a time where people used to study history, world history to be exact. It's not being taught. Do you know that? Well, how am I going to know about the world's history or what's happening now without accessing what has happened before? No one's talking about this. Everybody's fixated on what is being presented to you. So today we are living in very, very dangerous times. Sati is essential. It is actually as valuable as the oxygen that your lungs need, the nitrogen that your body needs, the carbon that your body needs, the hydrogen that your body needs. It's that essential. It's no longer a luxury. So I need you to think about it from that purview. Because today, we come back to what has been taught to you within the technique of metta, as I've been teaching you and guiding you and helping you understand and explore from your own experiences. Meaning, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana. The metta that we have been practicing, if you've been noticing how you've been asked, encouraged to tweak it by the relaxed step, by first recognizing relaxed step, checking in, seeing what's happening in you, smiling and feeling the effect of that, and then consciously rolling back into the metta practice, to your object of meditation. What you've been doing is the satipatthana. Unlike what traditionally has been taught and still is in Buddhist circles, which sadly enough was the same method of metta practice that was going on at the time of Lord Buddha. The Brahma Viharas were actually practiced at the time of the Buddha, you know. Contemporaries of Lord Buddha were practicing this. In the Halidavasana Sutta, yes. The bhikkhus are meeting with yogis and recluses of other sects. You know, they used to be very respectful to each other, not like today. You saw what happened at the park the other day. Interesting. If they look not like us, so they are cause for fear. We need to get them out. That's fear. Ignorance. In those days, human beings were much better than today, more civilized than today. So they were having cordial discussions. So the subject of Brahmaviharas comes up. So the bhikkhus describe what they do, and these bhikkhus apparently were practitioners of the Brahmaviharas, and the other recluses from other traditions were like, okay, yeah, and that's what we do as well. So what's so different between your practice and ours? So the bhikkhus don't say, yes, we agree, nor do they reject such a statement, such a claim. So they respectfully get up and leave and go to Lord Buddha, as a good bhikkhu is supposed to do. When you have Lord Buddha around, that is. Otherwise, you use the Dhamma and the Vinaya, because we don't have Lord Buddha anymore, and your own experiences to match them. So the bhikkhus went and explained, what is this, Bhante? And he says, okay, next time you face such a question, you need to explain it in this manner. There's a difference in your practice of the Brahma Viharas and ours. And how is that? The Sattabhujhangas, they completely change everything. Because they have within it sati, they have within it wisdom, Dhammavichaya, investigation, they have within it virya, they have within them piti, yes, tranquility of mind, samadhi, and upekkha, which thanks to sati becomes panya. The other day you were asking me about what's the difference between equanimity and indifference. Very simple, easy if you want to answer someone on the street, if they ask you such a question, which would be an interesting dialogue on the street. Sati. If it's genuine sati, it can never be indifference. The indifferent person is rushing out of this moment. They don't want to be experiencing the fullness of this moment. They despise being in the present. That's an indifferent person. They're bored to bits. An equanimous mind, however, is very open, very curious, present with panya, through and through. And that's one of the reasons why anyone has experienced the Brahma, they're called Brahma Viharas because a person who's practicing them, yes, you will go through the jhanas, if you really perfected them, after your death, you will be reborn in a Brahma realm, equivalent to that level of jhana. There's different levels, right? The equanimous would be the higher forms of Brahma realms. Now, in various suttas, Lord Buddha says, especially in the Anguttara Nikaya, Lord Buddha says, there's a difference between a person who is reborn in the Brahma realms thanks to the metta practice, and another person who's been reborn in the Brahma realms with the metta practice as well. One person who has just purely done metta or mudita or karuna or upekkha, when the time comes up, runs out, and they expire, they will fall from that realm to a lower realm, sometimes hell, usually. But the person who has also done metta, but with the Sattabhujhangas, or in other words, Satipatthana, will not. They will live in that realm until they become arahants. Either that, or they will be reborn into another Deva realm to attain arahantship. Is there a difference there? I think so. Earlier today, during one of the interviews, I was pointing out to a student how when we're practicing the Bojjhangas, it is not separate from the metta practice. Depending on how we have trained ourselves, sometimes we're very compartmentalized in our thinking. Yesterday I was talking about linear thinking. Each one of us is different. We have different constitutions, different ways of functioning. That's okay. However, when you come to a teacher, the teacher is supposed to instruct you on the right way versus the wrong way that you've been doing it. So, you don't drop the metta practice and say, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and switch over and do the Bojjhangas. Which normally a person who doesn't know how to work it would do. And that's okay up until you have to bring it up to the teacher to fix it as soon as possible. Because when you're doing, let's say, the 6 hours, or the 4 hours, or the 3 hours, I don't care about the number. As long as you include recognize, you include relax, we include smile, and you include the return back to the object. So that's pretty much 4. I don't care numbers. As long as you go through those flows. As you're doing that, especially when you get sloth and torpor, what's the instruction? Bring in piti. What is piti again? Is it part of the Bojjhangas? It gives you life, energy. All of a sudden you thought you were like about to lay down and sleep. Suddenly you're able to go ahead for 1 hour, 2 hours. Once in Indonesia, I said, I'm not going to sleep, I'm not going to sleep. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting. Everybody went to sleep, and now all of a sudden, the energy came. I thought I was going to be up for an hour and a half. Oh no! I was up until the next morning, and I loved my sleep. And my back was killing me. It was killing me. I had just come from a long flight, 8.5 hours. Long drive to the retreat place, which was about 3.5 hours away, up and down bumpy roads in Indonesia. So my body felt like it needed, but that PT changed everything. Now it's not just PT, of course, tranquility. You need to bring in that element, that flavor of tranquility when you're becoming too tight, when you get too hot. You get agitated. What needs to calm it down? I'm not going to bring in more piti or virya when my mind is agitated. You know, you don't do that. Not even Dhammavichaya, because it's too hot. They're energizing factors. I need to do the opposite. Pasadi. It's okay. Calm down. I'm not going to add more energy. That would be stupid of me. When am I doing this again? As I'm coming back to the metta. Do you see the difference? Instead of, may you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy. Yes, yes, yes. I'm seeing nimittas all around. Yes, it's glowing. I feel so fuzzy. No, that's not Dhamma. That's not Dhamma. I know we like to feel nice and all this. No, that's not why you're here. You're here to understand the Dhamma, to penetrate. That fuzziness is going to, at the most, take you some Brahma realm. And then you're going to fall on your behind. Sooner or later. What has that got you? A few billion years in a heavenly realm? Is that it? Is that it? That's cheap. My life is worth a lot more than that. My finding of the Dhamma in this whole mess of a world is worth a lot more than that. That's just me talking. I don't know about you. This is where we need to really own up and not just be too nonchalant or relaxed about this whole thing. So when we're doing the sutta, because I'm giving you all these things because it's the last day of me giving the suttas, the Dhamma discussions on this retreat.
Let's take a moment to immerse ourselves in the tranquil and serene Buddhist doxology hymns, skillfully performed by the gifted musical group Wayfarer. These hymns create a peaceful and contemplative atmosphere, inviting you to reflect deeply and forge a stronger bond with the wisdom of Buddhism. Let the soothing melodies and profound spiritual insights transport you as you experience the essence of these Ka hymns.
Bright shineth the sun in his splendor by day, and bright the moon's radiance by night. Bright shineth the hero in battle array, and the sage in his thought shineth bright. But by day and by night, none so glorious and bright as Lord Buddha, the source of all spiritual light. But by day by day, and bright the moon's radiance by night. Bright shineth the hero in battle array, and the sage in his torch shineth bright. But by day and by night, none so glorious and bright as Lord Buddha, the source of all spiritual life. But by day and by night, none so glorious and bright as Lord Buddha, the source of all spiritual life.
Grand 80th birthday celebration. The most vulnerable Luang Por Dhammajayo Nayaka Mahathero, leader of the internationally renowned Wat Pa Dhammakaya Mahavihara in Thailand, is celebrating his 80th birthday this week. Devotees and well-wishers from around the world are organizing spiritual and charitable events to honor this venerable master with wishes for good health, longevity, peace, and a blissful birthday. May the Holy Triple Gem bring him blessings on these special occasions and always. Buddha Dhamma TV extends its heartfelt birthday greetings to the Venerable Master. Professor Bande M. Siwali, Executive Director. We are pleased to introduce Buddhist nuns who are well versed in the Dhamma to share their knowledge with peace-loving listeners around the world. To kick off this series of Dhamma talks by Buddhist nuns, we are honored to have Venerable Sayale Panatheri from Myanmar deliver the first sermon. Sayala Panatheri is a meditation master and is currently pursuing her PhD thesis on the topic of grief. We respectfully invite Sayala Panatheri to share her wisdom on the Buddhist concept of grief, loss, and love.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So today, my Dhamma talk, let me share my slides here. Okay, so I will have 4 parts. In my talk, there will be the 4 parts here. So first is what is grief, and second is Buddhist concept of grief, and third is Buddhist concept of loss, and the last is the Buddhist concept of love. Okay, so what is grief? So here, grief is generally interpreted as a natural emotional response to the loss of loved one. So, for example, we lost our parents, we lost our better half, or we lost our children, something like that. So, when we face with the loss, then we have grief. So, and the next one is grief is another component, that is the close relationship. If we don't have close relationship, we don't have grief. although there are many people are dying in the world, but if there's no close relationship with those people, we don't feel grief. Grief involves close relationship with a person or a thing that we attach. And a grief relates not only losing a relationship with a human being, but also to any object that we love or attach. So sometimes we lost a job, sometimes we lost our wealth or our properties and our houses or cars, something, then we feel grief. We experience grief. So we can generally say that grief is an emotional response to the loss of loved one. So this is the statement that I like to talk about tonight. This is a part of my PhD thesis that currently what I'm writing now. And I'm interested in the Buddhist psychology especially, so I chose the grief. And I try to relate this English term to a Pali term, soka. Not worry. Some people they translate that worry. Soka is worry, but worry is before the loss. Before the loss, we worry something. We worry to lose something, to lose someone. But grief is it's happened after the loss. After the loss, so that it's different. So in my opinion, I think we should translate soka as grief. So grief, this is the main statement for tonight. I like to analyze here. The grief is an emotional response to the loss of loved ones. So you can look at here, we have three parts: grief, loss, and love, right? So here, grief, so I'll discuss grief, the Buddhist concept of grief, and loss, Buddhist concept of loss, and love, the types of love in Buddhist teaching. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the Buddhist concept of grief. So in Buddhism, there are three related terms of grief, soka. So here, soka, parideva, and upayasa. So soka is the bereavement due to the loss of loved one, and parideva, in English we call lamentation. So lamentation is when we encounter the loss, we cannot control our mind. Then we have out of control. Then we try to weep aloud. Sometimes, oh mother, please don't leave me, something like that. Oh, something like, oh son, please don't leave me. Like that. So and we cannot control our emotion, then the sound coming out. So that is the stage of parideva, that is the stage of lamentation. And upayasa is the most intense sadness. That is the highest level of grieving. In some cases, it can cause suicidal cases, like the self-harm, because that individual cannot control the negative emotion, cannot cope with the grief, then it becomes more intense, then it can cause self-harm. So we can see these three terms in the Buddhist doctrine, such as the Four Noble Truths, or the dependent origination, Paticcasamuppada, or the Mahasatipatthana Sutta is very famous sutta in the Buddhist canon. So we can see these three terms in the Buddhist doctrines. So here I have drawn some pictures to illustrate these three terms: soka, parideva, and upayasa. So grief is a boiling stage. For example, when we put some oil in a pot, then the boiling stage, the grief is like It's a hot oil inside a pot over a slow fire. It's not very intense yet. The fire is not very strong yet. But the lamentation parideva stage is boiling over stage. It's like boiling water inside the pot. So it's boiling over from the pot. Then when oil is cooked over a massive fire, so it's coming out. Then we can of course we can hear the sound at the stage. Lamentation stage, it makes the sound already. But the grief is nobody can notice because we feel inside. We feel inside. But lamentation stages, the other people can notice because we have sound already. In the upayasa, despair stage, is drying up stage. So it's like what remains in the pot water after boiling over stage is dry up already. There's no oil inside. There's no water inside. It's dry up within the pot. So that is the highest stage of that emotion. Okay, so here we can check, is grief a mental illness or not? So let's look at from the Western psychological and Buddhist perspective. So from modern psychological perspective, there are ongoing debates in modern psychology and psychotherapy about whether and when grief can be considered either normal or pathological. So psychiatrists have long understood that grief should not be treated as pathological. According to Sigmund Freud, grief is a natural process that should not be tampered with. So there are different opinions among researchers and scholars and grief specialists regarding this particular issue. Is grief a mental illness or just a normal response? Soka is a mental disorder or it's a normal? So let's talk about the Buddhist perspective for human illness. So since we are human, so we are composed of mind and matter, right? Mind and body. It is called nama and rupa. So human illness can only be connected with mind and body. So we call bodily illness is kaika roga and mental illness is cetasika roga. So Buddhism sees that human illness occurs intrinsically since we are born. Since we become a human, the illness is already there, already within us, so that we will be ill in terms of bodily or mentally. So these things are very common to all of us according to the Buddhist understanding. In modern medical science, they have very specific criteria, very specific symptoms of mental illness or mental disorder to diagnose. For example, DSM or the we call this. It's from the manual for the psychiatrics. For all mental disorders, they have kind of specific criteria and specific symptoms. So Buddhism considered that illness is common to everyone in this world, and mental afflictions such as normal grief or normal physical illnesses these are the dukkha. These are intrinsic suffering according to the Buddhist understanding. So if we look at the human illness, there are two types. One is mental illness and physical illness. So for mental illness is we call cetasika roga, that is normal grief. And then omada. Omada is the stage of pathological. It's out of control already. It's normal stage. So pathological illness, mental illness, madness, that we can see in the Jataka story as well. Here, Chetasika Roga is just a normal illness. So, in these days, a psychiatric or a psychotherapist may not treat a person as a mental patient unless he is having certain pathological symptoms and or meeting a criteria as classified in the DSM or ICD. So DSM is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, issued by the American Psychiatric Association. And ICD is issued by the WHO, World Health Organization. So they have the classified criteria or symptoms, so that according to the symptoms, the psychiatric or psychotherapeutic, they treat a person. So that the normal person is not treated as a mental patient. That is the key concept found in the modern psychiatry and psychotherapy. But in Buddhist understanding, the Buddhist concept of mental illness, Buddhism treats every ordinary person is mentally ill. Mentally ill. That is the different thing. So here, the mental illness in Buddhist psychology. So Buddhism considers that mental illness is common to all ordinary beings, and mental afflictions such as Soka, Parideva, Dominasa, Dukkha, Dominasa, Upayasa, those are intrinsic suffering. It's a Dukkha Satya. So it's the Dukkha in Buddhist psychology. So there are two main concepts that we can find in the Buddhism and Buddhist literature. First is every enlightened person is mentally ill. So you may heard of it, Omatakoviya hi putujana. So if we are putujana, if we are enlightened person, of course we all are mentally ill, because we have defilements. We have hatred, we have greed, hatred, and delusion, lopa, dosa, moha, so that our mind is not healthy. So we are not mentally healthy. So this is the meaning. And the second point is even the enlightened ones, except arahants, the lower level of the Arya, lower level of the noble disciples, Sotapanna, Sakadagana, and Anagami. So Sakadagami and Anagami. So these three levels are yet mentally ill because they still have defilements, they still have kilesa. So this is the Buddhist concept of mental illness. Okay, let's talk about the Buddhist concept of loss. So there are 5 types of loss, okay, in Buddhism. Before I talk about this, let me say about something, the loss. So loss is very common. Yeah, loss is very common for all of us. For example, many of us experience loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are major losses due to this pandemic, such as the loss of our loved one through death. Okay, let me stop screen. So there are major losses due to this COVID-19 pandemic, such as we have loss of our loved ones to death. And in Buddhist teaching, that is the loss of relatives or nyati pyasane, right? The second is the loss of our own health. We are affected by the COVID-19. Then coronavirus infection, so which can be called the loss of health, or in Pali we call roga pyasana. So loss of our own health due to the coronavirus infection and the death of a loved one due to the virus definitely endanger mental suffering, soka, grief, like that. So death due to COVID-19 are likely to be more painful for some reasons because the death is really unanticipated during the pandemic period. The infected patient had to be separated from the loved ones due to the potential, the contagion, and so on. So as a result, many have died without the family, the presence of the family members. And the worst thing is that family members are not able to mourn and grieve properly at the last moment of the loved ones. So they cannot mourn culturally, they cannot mourn religiously. So apart from the above major losses, other subsequences like secondary losses have been caused as well to spread of the COVID-19. So this pandemic has resulted in a large number of unemployment. So we have got the financial problems all over the world, financial hardship all over the world. It's the global issue, global problem we just faced recently. So subsequently, individual mental unhealthiness indirectly affects the whole global economic growth. So there are the losses of wealth. In Pali, we call Bhoga Vyasana. So these three types are we are experiencing these three types of loss in our daily life. This is very common. And so in the Buddhist concept of loss, this is the truth that everyone in every community is facing the loss, regardless of gender, either we are female or male, we have to face the same. Regardless of nationality or regardless of religion or socioeconomic status, regardless of our status, it's the same. So that in Satsavibinga Sutta and the Visuddhimagga and the Dispeller of Delusion, Sammoha Vinodani, they mention that these texts, these sutta states that the soka or grief denotes an emotional response to the 5 types of loss. So here I'll share the 5 types of loss. Okay. So 5 types of loss in Buddhism. So loss of relatives, loss of property or wealth, loss of health, loss of morality, and loss of view. So the last 2, loss of morality is sila vyasana, and loss of view is ditthi vyasana. So these are not discussed in the Buddhist, in the Western psychology. These 2 we can find only in the Buddhist psychology and Buddhism. So here again we have the question. Okay, the grief is an emotional response to the loss of loved one. Then we can ask, does everyone experience grief when he or she encounters any form of loss? Does anyone experience grief when he or she encounter any form of loss? So I have 2, I think we can answer in 2 ways. First thing is, yes, we can answer yes, because an ordinary people suffer from grief when they encounter the loss of loved ones. For example, in the Buddha's time, we have disciples. I think you all are very familiar with that. The Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya, she has the cumulative or the pathological grief due to the subsequent deaths of her two sons and her husband and her brother and her two parents, to father and mother. So she had the subsequent loss within a short time. So she became mad, and her grief was so intense. And similarly, the Kisa Gautami's intense grief of losing her one and only son, her beloved son. She lost her son. Then she became out of control. Then she experienced intense grief as well. Right? These are the disciples. Even in the Buddha's time, it was over 2,600 years ago. So it's the same until now in this modern day. So next, not only the ordinary disciples grieve due to the death of loved ones, but also the stream witness like Ananda, Venerable Ananda. He grieved upon the death of Venerable Sariputta. He was a stream winner, Sotapanna. Still he experienced soka, grief, and he cried. He lamented because upon the death of his teacher, Venerable Sariputta. Again, the Visakha, the female disciple, very famous female disciple Visakha. She was also a stream winner, Sotapanna, and her lamentation on the death of her granddaughter, and she went to the Buddha, and then she cried, and she talked to the Buddha. She was experiencing intense grief upon the death of her very cute and very lovely granddaughter. So in brief, despite the difference in time frame, grieving a loss is an inevitable part of our life and a major type of suffering that is common to all of us in this world. Okay, let me share the screen again. So we can answer to this question: does everyone experience grief when she encounter any form of loss? We can answer yes, because for ordinary people, yes, of course, yeah. But we can answer we can have another answer, that is no. For the noble disciple, such as Arahant, they do not suffer from grief due to the loss because they don't have loved ones. They already completely eradicated the defilements, including craving and attachment. So they don't have attached or loved ones. So based on these findings, I conclude that the cause of grief is dependent upon one's deep-seated attachment rather than the loss. So loss is not the root cause. Our attachment, our love towards towards a person, a specific person, is the cause. So attachment, or we can say, tanha, or lust, raga, whatever we use, attachment is the root cause. But loss is just the trigger. We have attachment since we are born. Then with attachment, we attach the people, we attach the things, we attach, living things and non-living things. Then because of that attachment, when our loved things disappeared forever, we have to say goodbye to them forever. So at that moment, we have grief. So loss is just the trigger. Okay, so let's talk about the Buddhist concept of love. We have three types of love found in the Buddhist literature. We can find in the Buddhist literature. First is Pema. There are two types of love: couple love, family love. Couple love is called Tanna Pema, and family love is called Gehasita Pema. Family love mean like the love among the family members, among the siblings, right? Either or, our love towards father, mother, brother, sister. These all are family love. Gehasita Pema. And Tana love is like the love towards the husband or the love towards our wife, like that. So both these type of loves involved attachment. This is called Pema is quasi-sexual affection. This is then another third type of love is Mitta. Mitta is impersonal, unconditional, and then there's no attachment in mitta, this type of love. So we can call it like all-embracing love to all beings. So we don't have any discrimination. There's no difference between the stranger and our family member. We have mitta towards the same love towards all beings. So if we love with mitta, then we cannot experience grief or lamentation or despair. But if we love with attachment, if we have the couple love or family love, then it's a kind of dangerous. The more we have close relationship, the more we have attachment, then the more we can experience the grief, the more intense grief we can experience. So this is the Buddhist concept of love. So here, Buddhist non-attachment. So the Buddha never recommend that, we have to cut off love, or we have to cut off our relationship with the family members, we have to cut off our relationship with our co-workers or the people in our society. No, not in that way. The Buddhism does not recommend it. There's this kind of anti-relationships, or the Buddha never suggests, you should not care your mother or your father. No, not in that way. The Buddha always encouraged to care the people around us, to love around us. So it suggests the subjective quality of being free from metaphysics. The thing is, we need to love, we need to care the people around us without metaphysics, without kind of identification. This is my mother, this is my father, this is my husband, this is my wife. As long as the more you have metaphysics, the more you have these kinds of identity, then you might have grief after the loss of those people. So having a close relationship is not important, but to love each other with less or no attachment is more important. So in brief, we don't need to stop loving others. You should not misunderstand that. We should love the people, but we need to know how to love them. And we need to know the Buddhist way of loving each other. So we have different types of loving, like mitta. We can love with mitta. We can care the people with garuna, compassionate love. or we can deal with the people, we can communicate with the people with the mudita, the appreciative joy. So these are the types of loves or those are not involved attachment. So these are the types of loves in Buddhism. Okay, so here we have 3 parts involved in a grieving process. If we look at our grieving process, then there are 3 parts: loved one, loved, and lost. So loved one might be a person or a thing. For example, a person. So we for example, we attach our mother, for example, mother, or maybe husband or wife. So we wrongly perceive and attach 5 aggregates. So the body of our loved one involves 5 aggregates, our nama and rupa, right? Mind and matter only. But we perceive that, oh, this is my mother, this is my husband, this is my wife. We name it, we label it. Then loved. The Buddhism does not regard attachment-based love is the best form. So Buddha never recommend attachment-based love. So one does not need to cut off the relationship, but need to love other without craving or less craving or attachment. So this is the way how to love, the Buddhist way of how to love. And loss is not the primary cause. That is just a trigger to generate grief. So in Buddhist psychology, these are 3 main points I like to convey tonight. 3 messages. First is grief is common to all ordinary beings. So no problem. If you have sadness, if you have grief, if you cry over the loss of your family member, no problem. This is common to all of us. You are not alone. You're not alone. But less attachment in your mind can help to experience less intensity of grief. So if you don't want to experience grief, then you should not have too much attachment. You should not have strong attachment. That you need to be careful. Grief doesn't matter, but you try to reduce your attachment. That's the matter. And with complete non-attachment, one can completely free from grief, soka, and can have the real happiness. So we need, in daily life, we need to practice to reduce our attachment. Try to check your mind, try to check yourself all the time, or maybe as possible as you can. Am I loving too much? Am I loving with strong attachment, or am I grasping too much, grasping strongly a person or a thing like that? Okay, so here, let me close that. So I like to argue that the role of craving or attachment is more important than the loss of the loved one in a grieving process. So we must have the knowledge how to love, and we have to practice to reduce the attachment. It's really important in the understanding, Buddhist understanding of grieving or to stop grief. This is really important that we should practice. So in this Dhamma talk, and I like to suggest you all 2 main things. First, please try to reduce attachment towards the people around you, or the properties, the things around you. And please try to reduce the expectations or the judgments, and try to control towards those people around you. Maybe you try to control your husband or your wife or your children or your employees or your friends. So unknowingly, we have expectations, we have controls, we have judgments towards them while we are living with them in our daily life, either at home or at work. So this is the thing. Next, please try to learn how to love the people and the things around us by practicing Buddhist way of love, Buddhist way of loving, such as metta, so love with unconditioned love, pure love, without expectation. It's just giving, not taking. Metta is just giving, just sharing our happiness or our desire, our willingness to see their success. So there's no expectation. So this is pure love. And the next, karuna, so love with understanding. They are suffering, dukkha, and willingness to help them, willingness and desire to release their suffering. And the third, mudita, so love with an appreciation for their success and their well-being. So these are the very qualified love that we can learn in the Buddhism. So by developing these kinds of Buddhist love, we can be happy and also mentally healthy, and we can cope with negative emotions such as stress, anxiety, or sadness, or grief, or even depression, or loneliness, or fear. So we can cope with those things if we try to change our way of loving. We practice metta, we practice karuna, we practice mudita in our daily life, so we can be happy, really happy. So our family member will be happy. If we are happy, they will be happy. So we can build a happy home or happy office like that. Okay, so this is the end of my talk. And I hope you enjoy this talk and you can learn something out of it. And may you all be, I wish, may you all be free from fear, sadness, or grief, depression. So may you all be happy and healthy in your daily life. Sabbe tiyo vivachantu sokoroko vinasattu nate bhavantantaraya sukhiti ka yukto bhava vivadana silesa nesa otapachayino sattaro dhamma vadanti ayuvano sukhambala sadhu sadhu sadhu.
Thank you, Sayali. I think that is a very interesting topic that you spoke about. Just before we end, there is one question from the audience. Would you like to take this opportunity to answer that question? I put it onto the screen, yeah?
Okay. Is it correct that what you're trying to teach is it is okay to learn? Yes, of course. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right, Calvin. What I'm trying to tell you tonight is okay. It's okay to laugh, but we should be very careful not to grasp or not to attach. So we can love with the compassionate love, or we can love them with metta, is without grasping, without expectation. Because, for example, you may have some experiences in daily life. A mother try to teach to a son with metta. It seems metta, yeah, because she wants her son to be successful in a class, for example, but the son does not obey, then her mitta, her love, is changed into dosa, anger. Why you don't understand to me? Why you don't listen to me? You should do like this. You should not do like that. Something like that. So mitta is changed into dosa. So because of attachment, she's trying to attach. She attached her son, and so this mitta and dosa or loba are really slightly what to call. We can have these kinds of things very quickly in a short time, so we should be very careful. So that's correct. What I mean is, it is okay to love, but please love with compassion, please love with loving kindness and appreciative joy, not with attachment, not with grasping, not with expectation. Thank you.
लोक विदूति नामीन अतीता नागति विदो संकार सत्मोहासी लोक विदो नाम ही नामो
Well, that's all for today. If you have any concern or questions, don't please hesitate to reach out to us at info@buddhatharmatv.com. Thank you for watching, and I'm sure that our programs on Buddha Dharma TV will be a source of inspiration for many of peace lovers around the globe. Good night. Namo Buddhaya.